Are you more of an Athena or an Artemis? Hi, my name is I Am McCullum, and in this podcast, Tales of the Stardust, I will be telling you stories from antiquity and world mythology, but in a different light and different perspective, with stories that you can incorporate in your everyday life, because these stories have been told from generations to generations, and there must be some meaning to them. So come and join me as we dive deep down in today's story. I always had this kind of dilemma with Athena and Artemis, and it all started in middle school when I finally picked up this old Greek mythology textbook, and the first myth that I read was the myth Artemis's birth story, how she went up to her father Zeus and said that she wanted to be a virgin all her life. She did not want to get married, and that she wanted a hunting party with a group of nymphs so she could hunt around the woods. And as I kept flipping through the mythology stories, I went across to Athena, who was the goddess of wisdom. And it was before I really knew about myself, knew about my personality when I was around 13. But I just remember I just loved Athena. And I could relate to Athena more. And her birth story was just so strange that it just stuck with me. But I always felt that whenever someone would ask me, well, what kind of goddess are you most close to in middle school, or whoever would ask me that, I would always be Athena. But then there was also that kind of Artemis in the back of me, because what threw me off with Artemis was that she never could get married. And I don't understand why that threw me off. Probably because I was in middle school and I was also going through some early crushes and early lovely heartaches. But Athena was the same way. But I didn't understand what the difference was between them. So I was thinking about it, and in this episode, I'm going to try to see the differences between these two goddesses. Because, for one thing, they are the same because they are both virgin goddesses. And they're part of the 3 virgin goddesses. We'll talk about Hestia in a second episode. But for now, we're going to focus on these two because they seem so alike to each other, but yet they're so different. I'm going to start off with Athena. Now, Athena is the daughter of Zeus and Metis. And what happened was Metis was Zeus's first wife. She helped Zeus defeat Cronus. But there was a prophecy that said if Metis were to bore a son, he would take over Zeus. So instead of kind of repeating what his father did, Zeus kind of ate Metis through a competition, and he tricked her into eating her. And through that, she was already pregnant with Athena. And one day, Zeus had this massive headache to the point where he split his head open to where Athena, fully grown, came out with her armor and splendor. And then it was kind of all history through there. Artemis was the daughter of Leto and Zeus. And Artemis was born first, and she helped give birth to her brother, Apollo. The birth stories are around the same way. But the thing with Artemis is that she was a little girl, and that she went up to Zeus and she asked for a silver bow and to be a virgin and to have a group of nymphs with her in the woods so she could hunt for the rest of her days. Athena, on the other hand, came with no childhood. She just kind of came out fully grown, ready to do what she was made to be put on this earth for. So there's the difference. And another difference is how Artemis is portrayed in Greek mythology. Artemis has her myths, but it's only concerning her. She doesn't really get, only a couple of stories have her actually take part. But otherwise, some myths her myths are her myths. It usually deals with her hunting party and herself, or Apollo, her twin brother, but it's really her. And the thing with Artemis is that she's a huntress in the woods. She's a protector of young girls. So Artemis, in a way, is this kind of free spirit. She doesn't wear any armor. She's free. She's in the woods. And that's her persona. And she's away from society. She's not what society sees women as during that time, obviously. And she doesn't get married. She doesn't do any of that. She's her own independent woman. And that's what sets Artemis apart from all the other women personas in ancient Greece, was that she was this independent woman. Now, if you're thinking how I'm thinking, well, Athena's independent too. Yes, but Athena has one key factor that Artemis does not have, and that is responsibility. Now, Athena is the goddess of wisdom and war strategy. And there was a lot of cults to Athena that weren't just Athena, but there was Athena Parthenos, and Athena, protector of Athens, and Athena, goddess of the war front. She was all these different things. She was also the goddess of arts, of crafts and arts, and she was just all these things. She wasn't just one thing. But if we look at it through a standpoint, she's more responsible for more things. She has more on her shoulder. She has armor on her shoulders. She has a helmet on her shoulders. Whereas Artemis has nothing. She's free flowing. I like to think of an example of an Artemis and an Athena, as in, we can say, as high school students. As Artemis is probably the one that plays sports, doesn't really do her homework, probably ditches a couple of classes, but no one can tell her what to do. However, an Athena is probably that one student that's kind of like the Hermione Granger of Hogwarts. She's always studying, she's always working, and she has all these high advanced classes. She's a president of many clubs, and she does all this different stuff, and this very well diverse, rounded person. So there's the difference between the two goddesses. But then another big difference in these two goddesses is the way how they view themselves in the pantheon and in the rules they follow. Artemis does not follow the rules. There's a reason why she's in the woods, because she was the goddess of young girls. She was the goddess of without responsibility. Because when we're young, we don't have responsibility necessarily. And I think that's good, because she's independent and she feels she has this freedom in herself. But then there's Athena, and Athena has this very key part in the Iliad where she sees Ares. We talked about Ares in a couple of episodes ago, but Athena really likes to follow the rules. And in the Iliad, there's a point where she's looking at the battlefield, the Trojan War, and she sees Ares fighting. And one of the rules that Zeus put on the gods was they were not supposed to interfere. And obviously Athena gets infuriated because he's not following the rules when she's following the rules, and therefore she gets really mad, and then she starts fighting. And that's the key difference, is Athena loves to follow the rules. Athena loves structure. She loves government. She loves law. Whereas Artemis loves freedom. And there's where Athena has all that armor and Artemis just has her bow. All Artemis needs is her bow, but Athena needs all that armor. She needs that protection. So I was always conflicted, personally, with these two goddesses and who I identified with, because I was just kind of confused to see, well, am I more of a free spirit? Would I, if I was in ancient Greece, just wear a nice flowy dress and have a bow and run out to the woods? Or would I spend hours putting on my armor and putting on all these responsibilities because I love the power, but I also love the structure? And I was always conflicted with that kind of idea is, can I be both? Or do I have to pick and choose? Because they're both the same exact independent goddesses. It's just Athena has responsibility. And there was a certain ritual that ancient Athenians would do. And it was when a woman was about to get married, she would sacrifice a lock of her hair to Artemis, as in saying thank you to the goddess for protecting her as a young child. But then after the wedding ceremony, they would go to the temple of Athena, because Artemis is the goddess of young girls. She's the protector of young girls. But it's when they become women, they start getting the responsibility, and they start getting those Athena traits. Because Athena, I did a paper on this in college where Athena was also looked as a mother, but not in a mother in a fertility way, but in kind of like a teacher way. In a teacher, as a mother is a teacher, and responsibilities of a mother to teach their children. But there's still Artemis, and Artemis also, if a woman did not want to get married in Greek mythology, she would run away to Artemis and join the band of the hunter virgins. And that's rejecting like society and rejecting responsibility. But there must be some correlation, and there must be a way where these two goddesses can get along with each other, because they still stand for the same thing, but it's just in the difference of their responsibilities. So I believe I prepared a diagnosis of how you can incorporate a little bit of Athena and a little bit of Artemis. Athena loves structure, and structure helps things to be more organized and more precise. Artemis is focused, but she also has freedom. Because we all don't live in ancient Greece anymore. We don't live in that time period anymore. We can be mothers. We can be whatever we want to be. There are times when we do need to run into the woods and sometimes be with our band of huntresses. But then there's also those times where we can put on our armor and we can say, here I am. But we can also be free spirits within. We just have to go on with our lives knowing that rules can be broken, rules can be changed, but in the end, we always need strategy and focus. Because that's what these goddesses really have in common, is focus and bravery and determination. That's what makes them virgin goddesses. They don't rely on others, they rely on themselves. And maybe we need to start doing that too, because we have the power inside of us. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of the Stardust. If you'd like to hear more content like this, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @im_McCullum. And as always, let the stars be your guide.